I'm gonna keep it real. Like, I be thinking most blacks is scared of they scared of him. Because like the essays, like let me give you a scenario, right? Okay, a black hood can have been in LA for years, decades, right? Soon as an essay buy a few houses on the block in a hood, guess what? Now that's they hood. Y'all gotta share the hood with the Hispanics. And the blacks don't go to war with them or nothing. I didn't see blacks not even go to war with them, right? Feel me? And when they do go to war, they always be friends with them first, right? But let a black family move on the block and say, man, we started our own crew right here. This our hood too. They're going to be trying to mark them out, shoot them out, punk them, do every most blacks be cowards, bro. Black gangbangers.
That doesn't even make any sense.
That's what would happen. Most black gangbangers are cowards. That's why they're gangbangers. They took over LA. They smarter than us. All the blacks are scared of them. And they outsmarted the whole black culture in LA. And I don't care what nobody say. If you want to get, blacks are scared of Hispanics, bro. Black people need to give each other the same respect and the same love they give these Hispanics walking around LA. You know what's up?
What's the deal? I'm from ATF Compton Crib. I'm from ATF Compton Crib. Hell yeah. I'm from ATF Compton Crib.
This right here is exactly what Snoopy Badass was referring to when he spoke about how, in certain situations, some black individuals may feel intimidated or hesitant when tensions rise with Hispanic groups. Now let's keep this YouTube friendly and put it into proper context. In this particular situation, the artist was simply conducting an interview, not bothering anyone, not being disrespectful, just handling business and minding his own. But as we saw, the energy around him began to shift once he was approached and ultimately pressed by a group of Hispanics. And what stood out to a lot of viewers wasn't just the confrontation itself, it was the body language and reactions of the people around him. Some of the African Americans present appeared overly friendly or passive during a moment where things were clearly escalating. Now, some may interpret that as an attempt to keep the peace or avoid unnecessary conflict, which is understandable. But others might view it as hesitation in a tense environment. That's the broader point Snoopy Badass was making, not as a blanket statement about everybody, but highlighting how, in certain real-life encounters, people may respond cautiously when they feel outnumbered or unsure of how a situation could unfold.
I've been on the lack, man. I've been in the back with the groupies and the stars. I've been out front with the thugs and the guards. I've been on the yard with the Mexican mafia, and I only run with niggas that'll kill and die for ya. I'm popular.
When you zoom out and look at Los Angeles historically, situations like this aren't just random moments. There has been a very real racial divide in certain parts of LA for decades. And unfortunately, that divide has come with serious consequences. Over time, South Central Los Angeles shifted demographically from being majority black to one of the fastest growing Latino communities in California due to housing changes, economic pressures, migration patterns, and displacement. That shift didn't just impact politics or culture, it affected neighborhood identity, territorial boundaries, and street dynamics, which in some cases created tension between communities that were now sharing the same limited resources and living spaces. When those tensions boiled over in 1992, after the Rodney King verdict, the city saw more than 60 people lose their lives and over 2,000 others injured. Among the casualties were both Black and Latino residents, which shows that two communities already dealing with poverty, over-policing, underfunded schools, and lack of opportunity ended up suffering losses in the same conflict zones. And even beyond that moment in history, decades of gang-related conflicts and neighborhood disputes across Los Angeles have contributed to thousands of lives lost in retaliation cycles that have impacted both Black and Hispanic families alike. Which brings us to the bigger picture. Black people and Hispanic people are both minorities in this country, and historically both communities have had to deal with discrimination in housing, employment barriers, aggressive policing tactics, mass incarceration, and economic disenfranchisement. In theory, both groups are supposed to be aligned in the fight against oppression, injustice, and systemic unfairness that affects underserved communities across the board. But on a local level, especially in neighborhoods where resources are already limited. Competition over territory, identity, jobs, and influence has sometimes created division instead of unity. For creators like those building platforms such as In Your Business TV, who are out documenting real-time interviews and street-level interactions, it's important to understand that the tension you might see in a single encounter today is often rooted in decades of demographic shifts, political neglect, economic struggle, and unresolved neighborhood conflict. At the end of the day, the casualties over the years show that when minority communities are divided against each other locally, the long-term losses tend to be shared by everyone involved, even when the original fight wasn't truly with each other to begin with. The real solution to situations like this isn't pretending that the tension doesn't exist. It's understanding where it comes from and making intentional efforts not to let it keep repeating itself. First and foremost, both Black and Hispanic communities have to recognize that the long-term issues affecting our neighborhoods are often the same. Lack of resources, underfunded schools, over-policing, limited job opportunities, and economic neglect. When two groups are placed in the same underserved environments and forced to compete over housing, employment, and territory, it becomes easy for frustration to be redirected toward each other instead of toward the systems that created those conditions in the first place. Secondly, there has to be more communication and accountability at the community level. That means neighborhood leaders, activists, and even influential voices, including media platforms like In Your Business TV, using their reach to promote understanding instead of fueling unnecessary division. When misinformation or isolated incidents are allowed to define entire groups of people, it only deepens the mistrust that already exists. On a practical level, conflict resolution efforts, cultural awareness, and youth outreach programs can play a major role in preventing future clashes. When younger generations are taught early on that they share more common struggles than differences, it becomes easier to build alliances instead of rivalries. Unity doesn't mean everyone has to agree on everything, but it does mean understanding that fighting one another only weakens both sides in the long run. At the end of the day, if both communities are facing similar forms of oppression, injustice, and systemic barriers, then progress is more likely to happen through cooperation than competition. Moving forward requires a shift in focus, from territorial conflict to collective advancement, because division has already cost too many lives on both sides.